So thank you for inviting us. I'm a professor in economics and law here at Berkeley, and my co-author, Michael Love, is a fourth-year graduate student in the economics department. And the title of our paper is Magnitude and Precision versus Sign and Significance in the Social Sciences. So in this paper, we study what we call headline results, which are results that authors have chosen to put in their abstracts. So headline results shape a reader's understanding of a paper's importance. And they also reflect, we think, what authors think are important takeaways in the paper. That's why they put them in their abstract. So consider this social science headline result from an important paper by Raj Chetty and co-authors. Students who were randomly assigned to higher quality classrooms in grades K through 3 have higher earnings, college attendance rates, and other outcomes. Certainly, this is an important subject. We call these assigned results because higher earnings suggests the change in earnings was positive. Higher college attendance suggests that that was also positive. And so it's a sign result. And sign results sound important, but they actually leave us cold. And this has been a pet peeve of mine since graduate school. My question when I read a sign result is, are the effects big or are they small? And are they precisely estimated? And so I don't find that out from reading this result. Maybe if I dig in the paper, I find it out. Maybe I don't. Probably I do if I spend enough time, though sometimes it turns out I won't. Contrast this with this medical headline result from a New England Journal of Medicine article, which says that the estimated overall survival at 42 months was 70%, with a confidence interval of 63.5 to 76. And in the ribociclib treatment group, survival rate was 46% with a confidence interval from 32 to 58.9 in the placebo group. Well, reading that, even though I'm not a medical researcher, I know a lot about what they discovered. In fact, if I have the underlying condition, I'm very excited to take this drug. And it's because it's a numerical magnitude with numerical precision. And they've answered the questions I had before. So about the economics abstract. So the questions of this paper, our research, are to what extent are these headline results typical of social science versus medicine? How do headline results vary by discipline and over time? And our last question is, do numerical headline results get cited more? Our claim fundamentally is they're better most of the time, but we wondered if they actually get cited more. So here's a preview of our findings, or here's our central finding, which is that numerical headline results are extremely scarce in the social sciences as compared with medicine. So if you look at the left panel, this is numerical magnitudes in headline results, which are results that authors have prioritized by putting in their abstracts. And you see in the medical journals we study, almost 100%. There's a little whisker here for our standard errors. So it's 98% plus or minus 1 perhaps in medicine have numerical headline results in an abstract. A little less, around 38% plus or minus 2% or something in economics. Political science and sociology are down in the 8% range, plus or minus a couple percent. If you look over here at the right-hand panel, where we look at precision, roughly 80% plus or minus a couple percent of medical articles have precision in their abstract for at least one estimate. In economics, political science, and sociology, I find this really remarkable. Precision of estimates is not sufficiently important in the author's eyes to rise to the level of placement in an abstract almost anywhere. In none of the political science and sociology articles that we sampled did we find it, and in only 1 or 2 of the economics articles. Additional findings. Economics has changed a lot over time. Our normative interpretation, as we call it, improving, but it's changed a lot over time, so that you see a lot more numerical magnitudes put in papers in their abstracts. 57% plus or minus 11% by 2019 versus 25% plus or minus 9% in 1999. We see no improvement or change in precision. You still have roughly 0% across the social sciences. When we looked at citations, in economics anyway, there's significant evidence that articles with numerical headline results have more citations. We estimate 25% more, plus or minus 18%. I can't tell you that's causal, but it's enough that I will put numerical headline results in my abstracts from now on.
Aaron, we have a quick clarifying question from Maya Machter. She's asking, does precision include p-values or only confidence intervals?
Good question. So if you actually state your p-value, we call that precision, because you can figure out the precision from that. If you state a range of p-value, then it's not a numerical precision. I think, get a qualitative precision for that. In economics, it wouldn't change things at all, how we rated p-values. In medicine, maybe you'd move from 80% up toward 100% if we were more liberal in calling p-values numerical. The roadmap is, I'm going to give you a little more about motivation, and then talk about methodology, talk about results. And if there's time, I will show you our conclusion slide. So why do we think that it's superior to have numbers? Well, we categorize things. They provide superior information to sign and qualitative results. So here's our categorization of results. Sign, as I told you, are things like the unemployment rate increased. Qualitative result would be the unemployment rate increased a lot, where a lot is qualitative. Numerical magnitude and precision, the unemployment rate increased by 0.5 percentage points, plus or minus 0.2 percentage points. Now, we have depicted the information the reader gets here graphically. So if you look at the left-hand pane, you see a positive sign result, where we're assuming, we're giving the author credit, they wouldn't be reporting this to us if it weren't statistically significant. And given that assumption, what they're telling us is that the results were magnitude of the point estimates on the horizontal and standard errors on the vertical. They're saying, look, what I found is somewhere in this shaded cone. Tells you something, but not a whole lot about what they found. The middle panel is this qualitative result, where it's large or a lot, and the shading represents the inference of a reader about the magnitude and standard error. On the right-hand panel is where the authors give you the straight dope, and the reader knows just what the author found out, which is the magnitude of the point estimate and the standard error. And so you see a point there. And I guess why we submitted this paper here is there is something that's non-transparent to us about reporting things as is done on the left-hand, in the left-hand panels. You're hiding the ball in some respect, perhaps for a reason, or perhaps just because that's the culture. I think a lot of it, with the panel on the left, is a culture of null hypothesis testing, which I was brought up in, certainly. So, quick example of what we say are the vague and ambiguity problems assign headline results. This is from the American Economic Review. The performance of Italian firms that sent their managers to the US increased. Oh, I should have set a timer for myself. If it's a large increase, then this summary is fair, but it's vague because it doesn't tell us how large. If, on the other hand, it was trivial and precisely estimated, then we would say this was technically accurate, but it's highly misleading, and it would be better to tell us that there was essentially no effect or little effect. But it's leading us to think that maybe this is a substantial effect. Similar studies can also appear contradictory under the lens of sign and significance. So consider these two hypothetical studies that estimate the elasticity of earnings with respect to class size. Study 1 estimates at -4 plus or minus 5. Study 2 at -6 plus or minus 5. The reports of these findings in the social sciences very likely might read something like, for study 1, we do not find an effect of class size on earnings. Might even say we find no effect of class size on earnings, which would be pretty bad. Study 2 might say we find that earnings increase as class size falls. Now, put that way, the studies seem in opposition and contradictory, but in fact, they aren't contradictory at all. If you just look at the point estimates and the confidence intervals, they're highly consistent. They support each other and suggest that the elasticity of earnings is a big negative number, perhaps best guess, -5. We aren't the first to suggest that there are problems with sign and significance reporting. There's a movement in the applied statistics community away from it that I have seen developing over the years. About 10 years ago, the American Economics Association stopped allowing asterisks and tables to reflect significance levels in its journals. The ASA in 2016 issued a formal statement, which I say here, question the reliance on p-values. Maybe that's strong. It's not that strong a statement as I read it, but some of the people involved in the statement in 2019 put the matter very strongly. Wasserstein and co-authors say that statistical significance language should be banished. My colleague, David Romer, has written an article in praise of confidence intervals, and he argues that they are rare he finds that they're rare in economics in the text of articles. And we find that, in fact, even magnitudes, if you go up a level and don't look at the text of the whole article, but look in abstracts, even magnitudes are fairly rare and confidence intervals essentially non-existent. Okay, data and methodology. So we consider 4 fields: economics, political science, sociology, and for comparison, medicine. And we look at 3 top journals in each field and 21 years of data. We randomize the articles and take the first 10. We randomize the empirical articles and take the first 10, which yields, we end up with 2,370 articles. Sociology journals, several of them had too few articles, so it doesn't multiply out quite right. These are the journals you end up with, that we ended up with. So they're sort of top journals, at least I recognize them as top in the fields I know. And what we do is we and a team of research assistants read the abstracts and categorize them, and sometimes refer to the paper where necessary. They're numerical, so we categorize magnitudes. You get a numerical magnitude if at least one empirical finding is presented as a number, either in words or Arabic numerals. Qualitative, if it's not numerical, but you have at least one qualitative result. It's sign, if it's not qualitative or numerical, but have at least one sign result, and none if it's none of the above, which is very few articles. We similarly categorize precision as numerical, qualitative, or none. You don't get sign precisions. So our results, this is the slide I showed you before, which says in medicine, you see lots of numerical magnitudes. Almost everything in our journals have numerical magnitudes. In economics, 38% plus or minus a couple, and very few in political science and sociology have that. If we ask about precision, you just never see it in the social sciences. And you see it a lot in medicine with 80% plus or minus a couple percent. What you see a lot of in the social sciences on the left-hand pane and almost none of in medicine are sign results. And you also see a lot of qualitative results. If we look at the left-hand pane in political science and sociology, the majority of the papers are sign results. And it's roughly the confidence interval, the 90% confidence interval reflected, I guess, by these bars is something like plus or minus 4%. In economics, it's about a third of articles have sign results, only a sign result, no numerical results, no qualitative results. I'm going to skip for time descriptive statistics. So in economics, this is the trend I was mentioning. When this became a pet peeve of mine on the left, about a fifth of articles had any numerical results in the headlines. At this point, something like over half do, which is a big, huge change in economics. They still don't mention precision almost ever, but about half have numerical magnitudes. I'd like to see that much higher. The trends aren't so big in the other social sciences. So here we have run a regression with journal fixed effects, I guess, and we find that you get perhaps 1.5% of extra numerical per year for 20 years in economics. In political science, sociology, and medicine, it's much smaller, more like 0.025% extra articles each year have numerical results. But it's going up there, I guess. At least our best estimate is it's going up. We also looked at citations, and with the question of whether numerical headline results get more citations. We ran regressions with journal year fixed effects. And we find in economics that articles do get, that have numerical headline results are cited 25% more, plus or minus 18% is our 90% confidence interval. It's a little less clear in the other fields that you do better. Medicine, the articles, I guess, take a huge hit, though it's very noisy. There are very few such articles, and I guess my guess is that that's not causal if I had to guess, but I don't know. And that the articles that don't have any numerical results are a different kind of article in medicine. And some other difference makes them cited more, but maybe people are yearning for articles without numbers in medicine and they cite them a lot more. So our conclusion is this. If you buy our idea that it's better to have numbers and not hide the ball, then social scientists have tremendous room for improvement. In economics, 64% plus or minus 3% of articles have no numerical magnitude as a headline result. In political science, 92% plus or minus 1% have no numerical magnitude reported as a headline result. And across the social sciences, this is especially true of precision, whereas you see essentially no one has a standard error or a confidence interval in an abstract. That's just not important enough, I guess, to social scientists, or it's against the culture to rise to the level of importance to be in an abstract. And we also find when we look at economics, we sampled 100 articles, and found at random and found only 2 of them had standard errors or confidence intervals in the introduction. So it really isn't important to report those things in economics. Economics is doing better than the other social sciences, at least as far as magnitudes, but not that great. Economics articles with numerical magnitudes for headline results do tend to get cited more, we find. And again, I don't know that it's causal, but I think it's another potential reason to put numerical headline results in your abstracts in economics. Okay, so that was fast. That's what we did, and I'd love to hear any questions. Am I supposed to look in the chat room?
Thanks, Aaron. So yeah, while you were presenting, there was an interesting discussion evolving in the chat. I believe Sean brought up that once he saw the list of journals in medicine, he's arguing that this could be because of the enforcement of reporting guidelines, specifically CONSORT.
Oh, I think that that's true, and I'm not expert on it, but we've looked at a couple of the medical journals, and they have style guidelines that require it. I'm not sure if we've looked at all 3 of the ones we have here. And we advocate that we like those style guidelines, and our paper will develop some model ones for the social sciences, and we advocate adopting such guidelines. You might hope, as an economist, I might hope that the incentives of extra citations would lead people to do it on their own. But I guess I'm enough of a regulator that if I were still running journals, I used to run a bunch, but if I were still running journals, I would require it. Are there any other questions you'd like to call my attention to?
Just a lot of comments. Lars Vilhuber points out that the conclusion that the increase of citations is likely to drive the largest increase in adoption. So essentially agreeing with you.
I see.
Get more citations.
And Lars expects a lot of pushback in economics. What? I haven't yet presented it. I get dichotomous reactions from my colleagues, but why are you expecting a lot of pushback, Lars?
I'd argue in general, and this is more of a personal impression than anything else, that there's still the idea that it needs to be a pretty text, a pretty article. And the more formal and very much more precise ways of describing things, whether that be in the text, where you would have the sort of reporting standards about response rates and ends and all that kind of stuff that other domains often have as requirements on how you write the article. I don't see much willingness to adopt those sort of more technical articles rather than pretty articles. They're still fashioning themselves as we're writing a philosophical work, even if it's primarily econometric. And so writing pretty language around the results is just as important. Writing a story around it is just as important as the content, the statistical content. And
yeah,
precise in these technical ways just goes a bit against that. And
so I think you have I think you make a good point, and I think that's part of it. And I may have resistance for that. You know, I have my rhetorical question would be, as economists, are we poets or scientists? And economists want to think of themselves as scientists, despite their hard work on the introduction. I think there's more than that going on, though. I think there's also this null hypothesis testing culture, because moving from sign to qualitative doesn't lose any of the poetry. Moving to numerical maybe does, including precision maybe does, but you still see a third of the articles just doing sign reporting. And actually, it's less poetic to sort of explain things in terms of hypothesis testing is less poetic than actually to report the size of magnitudes, either in numbers or qualitative terms. But I agree with you. There are reasons why people do things the way you do. And if you want to change things, you're going to have lots of pushback. And another kind of pushback, I face is, well, it's there in the paper. Read the paper if you want to know, which will be part of yours. And my answer is, well, that doesn't give a lot of respect for readers' time, is one answer. Another is, by the way, it turns out it isn't always in the paper. Frequently, you don't find standard errors in the paper if Stata doesn't just spit them out. If the point estimate is some convolution of the parameters you estimated, so that the standard error in it requires knowing the variance, covariance matrices and the means of the data and various things, then no one even bothered to calculate it, and the reader doesn't even have the information to. So I think it's a bit of a red herring when people respond that way to me.
I mean, the generic broader discussion about how you actually report on scientific advances is how much do you actually want to adopt a format that goes back to the 19th century, if you like, into something that is machine parsable, succinct, compact, and meaningful to parse. Should we have standardized tables that are machine readable so that we can much more easily do meta-analysis than having undergraduates pore over papers and try and parse what's supposed to be in there? Should we have better hypothesis reporting so that Olmo's work would be a lot easier to figure out how that actually is? I mean, just simply, and this is the part where my experience actually does have a role to play, simply getting folks to even cite their registration, which is technically has been possible now for at least a year in the RCT, in the social science registry, so that you can actually machine link articles through the citation reports to the registration, is a first step, a necessary step to do the kind of analysis that Olmo has been doing to sort of compare what's in the article and what's in the registration. Even just getting that piece into people's minds and into the articles is a chore. 90% of the articles, despite it being in the guidelines, do not have that citation in there, even though it's almost trivial to do. So moving to more structured articles that allow for these kinds of analysis and inferences based on a very short measure of it is hard. Shifting the paradigm on how you would do that is hard.
I agree. Shifting any paradigm is very difficult.
Well, I'm afraid we're running on time, so we're gonna have to move on with the next presenter. But Aaron, thanks for presenting your work, and this was very interesting, and I'm very happy to see that it spurred up an interesting discussion.
Thank you.